F1 on 5 Live.
Good afternoon and welcome along to live coverage of the Spanish Grand Prix. It's round 10 of the Formula One World Championship, which sees us arrive in Spain at the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya for the beginning of an intense European triple header. A track that is steeped in Formula One history, home to so much testing as well that has taken place here over the years. Every team and driver knows this circuit like the back of their hand. And right now, things are tight in Formula One. Mere hundredths of a second separating the drivers at the sharp end of the grid, and after a thrilling qualifying where Lando Norris snatched pole position from Max Verstappen on his last flying lap, we're all eager to get this race underway. Guiding you through all the coverage is myself, Harry Benjamin. Alongside me is former Formula One driver Jolyon Palmer and the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson. Jolyon, it is fine margins all throughout the field, but it was Lando Norris who got the best out of it in qualifying yesterday. Sensational lap, and he's given himself the best view in the house ahead of the race.
And he's given us a brilliant recipe for a cracking Grand Prix. McLaren and Red Bull on the front row, Verstappen beaten by Norris, and those two are so evenly matched. Norris has already won a race this year. Verstappen has won so much in the last 2 years. But there's company behind as well with the Mercedes, the Ferrari's not miles away. Formula One right now, having been a little bit very dominant for such a long time, it's back to being so competitive, and yesterday's qualifying showed it.
We're all really looking forward to this one. We'll run you through the whole grid before lights out at 2 o'clock. Andrew, what kind of race are we expecting here when it comes to pit stops and tyres and all that?
Well, usually you would expect 2 stops in Barcelona. Tyre degradation's high. The tyres drop off very quickly is what that means. So within 10 laps, you can have lost a second's worth of pace. That means that if there's a tyre offset, as they call it, overtaking should be relatively easy, which is not normally the case in Barcelona. And it isn't the case if the tyres are in similar age. But so 2 stops means different timings potentially, so we're expecting a lot of moving up and down in terms of the order. But in terms of Norris and Verstappen, we're expecting a very close race, and the big question is, apart from those two, can Mercedes make it a 3-car race? Can Ferrari, who weren't quite on the pace in qualifying but are on the 3rd row, can they even get involved?
Yeah, drivers on the grid now just going through their last few protocols, putting their balaclavas on, tightening their helmets before they step into the cockpit of their cars. Well, let's hear what our pole sitter had to say a few moments ago with Marietta Evans.
Lando, how special was that pole yesterday? What did it mean for you and for the team?
I mean, it means a lot, I think. It's just I started at the front. A pole is a pole, and gives myself the best opportunity for today.
Knowing how close everything is at the front, it's going to be challenging to turn that pole into a victory here today?
I mean, it's always going to be a challenge. The pace is so small. It's such a small difference between everyone. So, yeah, I mean, I want it to be an easy race. I want to be able to pull away and control things in my own way. But with Max behind, with the Mercedes behind as well, I think it's going to be pretty difficult. So, excited to get going, but we know it's going to be a tough race.
Thank you. Good luck.
Well, a pole's a pole for Lando Norris. It's about 595 metres, the run down to turn 1. It starts on actually the left-hand side. Verstappen will be on the right-hand side. So it's going to be a long race, 66 laps. But what does Lando need to do at the start, Jolyon?
Well, get off the line well is the most important thing, of course, from pole position. He starts on the left-hand side, but that's the racing line where there should be a little bit more grip. But it's then quite a long run to the first corner, and it's a good overtaking chance as well. There's a slight headwind, so it'll mean that the cars will bunch up behind Norris, assuming he gets a decent enough start, and then try and attack him into turn 1. We've seen some pretty aggressive moves in the past. One of them, more famously from Max Verstappen against Lewis Hamilton in 2021. He likes a lunge, and there's going to be opportunities for Hamilton and Verstappen to attack Lando at the start, and then it's down to being clean, being perfect with his driving, keeping those tyres in check, and the strategy as well is going to make a big difference today.
Yeah, turn 1 really is one of the best overtaking opportunities. 2 doses of DRS around this lap. The drag reduction system, the rear wing flap opens on the rear wing of these cars when you are within a second of the car in front, which gives the driver behind with that DRS around about 18 kilometers per hour of an advantage in terms of a speed increase. It's just over 4.6 kilometers this track, 2.8 miles, 14 turns, turns, 8 to the right, 6 to the left. There is actually a 20% chance of rain. It started off the day around about 40%, so rain not really playing a factor in these stages as we approach the start of the race. In fact, the air temperature is just over 24 degrees, track temperature just under 42 degrees. The sunshine is out, blue skies, white puffy clouds, lovely conditions to go racing in. And this is how the standings line up ahead of what will be the 10th round of the longest season in Formula One history. It's Max Verstappen who leads the way in the drivers, 194 points. He's 56 clear of Charles Leclerc in second. Then it's Lando Norris, who is only 7 points behind the Ferrari driver. Then it's Carlos Sainz and Sergio Perez, who off the back of 2 retirements in the last 2 races has fallen all the way down to 5th in the second Red Bull. Then over in the constructors standings, it's the Red Bull team who lead the way, 301 points, 49 clear ahead of Ferrari. Then it's McLaren, Mercedes and Aston Martin, the top 5, with RB in 6th, bringing up the rest of the second part of the field ahead of Haas. Alpine, who scored double points last time out, and in doing so managed to jump Williams for 8th. Then it's Williams and Sauber 10th and last, and still the only team with their 2 drivers, Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guanyu, yet to get off the mark, still 0 points ahead of them. It's Norris on pole, Verstappen alongside, Lewis Hamilton and George Russell 3rd and 4th. Then it's the 2 Ferraris. But Jolyon, interestingly, it's been a good weekend so far. If we just dip down a little bit further to the 2 Alpines, Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon, both drivers starting inside the top 10 for the first time this year. Gasly 7th, Ocon 8th.
Yeah, they're finding a little bit of form. They were woeful in the first part of the season. My old team, but in a different guise right now. And yeah, they're finding a bit of form. 7th for Gasly, 8th for Ocon, a circuit that definitely suits them, and they're going to be gunning for double points, which is what they got last time out as well. So they're picking up something in the season now as we head towards the middle part of it. 8th in the constructors right now, but they're going to be certainly looking at scoring points to take them up to 7th. Who knows? Maybe even 6th and back to the midfield for them before the end of the season.
Lando Norris said yesterday that he thinks 8 drivers could have the chance for the win today. Do you think that's realistic?
When did he say that?
Yesterday, after quali.
Oh, he said that after quali?
Yeah.
8 drivers. Well, we're in for some sort of humdinger of a race then, aren't we?
Well, so you've got to presume he's talking about, himself.
Gasly, Ocon, 7th and 8th.
Yeah.
Who are the 8, please? Surely not, with no chance of rain. Well, we're not expecting rain at the moment. This race is going to be won from the front, one of the front 3. Norris on pole, obviously has the best chance, but Verstappen you never rule out, and he probably is still favourite sitting on the grid right now. Hamilton is 3rd and has such good form around this circuit as well, and he's got George Russell alongside him. Mercedes have got a chance to do something a little bit different with their strategy on a race we know is going to be kind of dictated by strategy because the degradation is so high on the tyres. That could be such a decent weapon for them, because Red Bull have only got 1 car in the fight. Perez starts 11th. McLaren only have 1 car in the fight. Piastri starts 9th. Even if you have the top 8 with a chance, that doesn't include their teammate. So I think it's one of the top 3.
Well, Lando Norris gearing up, and we're just a few moments away from the formation lap. Grandstands absolutely packed. A few Mexican waves going on around this circuit as the last preparations are made before we get this race underway. 30 of the last 33 races here have been won from the front row, which is made up of Lando Norris and Max Verstappen. We're just moments away. It's coming up to 2 o'clock in the UK, and we're just about set then for what will be hopefully an enthralling race. It's time for the Spanish Grand Prix. My bad. Well, it is of course Lando Norris on pole position in the McLaren, his 2nd career pole. He starts alongside Max Verstappen. Lewis Hamilton is in 3rd in front of his teammate George Russell. Then it's the 2 Ferraris of Leclerc and Sainz, 5th and 6th. Gasly and Ocon 7th and 8th, with Piastri and Alonso rounding out the top 10. Sergio Perez with a 3-place grid penalty applied starts from 11th place ahead of Valtteri Bottas. Then it's Nico Hülkenberg in the Haas 13th ahead of Lance Stroll and Zhou Guanyu, the top 15. 17. Kevin Magnussen is 16th ahead of the two RB drivers, Yuki Tsunoda and Daniel Ricciardo in 18th spot. Then it's Logan Sargent who will be 19th and last on the grid, with his Williams teammate Alex Albon starting from the pit lane.
And Harry, we've already got an evidence of the way the strategy might take a role in today's race. Everybody's on the soft tyre at the start, apart from Alex Albon's Williams, who's starting from the pit lane. But Norris has got new soft tyres and Verstappen has got used soft tyres. Both of them had the option to go for a new set, which the Mercedes drivers didn't. It shouldn't make too much difference off the start line, but over the length of the stint, a new soft does have an advantage over a used. And what that means is Norris has his now, Verstappen has his new set for use potentially later in the race.
Okay, so keep an eye and remember that. So just to let you know, a lot of sport across the 5 Live network coming up, and it's a big match tonight in the Euros. 8 o'clock kickoff, Scotland-Hungary. Scotland can still qualify if they beat Hungary. We'll have live coverage ahead of the kickoff from 8 o'clock this evening, and that is on BBC Radio 5 Live. And don't forget, if you're at home and want to listen to us on your smart speaker, you can simply ask it to play Radio 5 Live. And now's quite a good time to do so, because Lando Norris now approaching down the main straight. Last couple of burnouts. Jolien, what are the drivers doing as they build up towards their starting grid position?
Weaving, braking, trying to get the temperature into the tyres, into the rears for the launch off the line, into the fronts to be able to stop when they get down to turn 1, and then they'll pull into position, make sure they're as far up to the front of the grid box as possible to take the last millimetres of space, and then laser focus to the lights. This is a big one for Norris. It's a tough place to start from pole, as pole places go. It's a long run to the first corner. He's got 2 champions right behind him. He needs to keep hold of this P1.
Max Verstappen starting alongside him. Good pedigree here. Of course, this was the track where on promotion and debut with Red Bull, he took his first ever race win. He does love it round here.
Norris actually parked a little bit back from his grid spot and was just engaging first gear and creeping forward to take the absolute most out of that. Back to stationary now.
Okay, last few cars lining up on the grids. The last 2 cars will be Daniel Ricciardo in the RB and Logan Sargent in the Williams, with Alex Albon going from the pit lane. As Sargent lines up in 19th, the green flag flies at the back of the pack. It's Lando Norris on pole position, Max Verstappen alongside him. It's all eyes to the lights and foot to the floor as we go racing in Spain, and it's a good start from Lando Norris, but it's a good start from Verstappen as well. Norris squeezes Verstappen to the inside, almost on the grassy runoff, but it's Verstappen who's going to have the inside, but it's Lewis Hamilton who sweeps round the outside. The Mercedes driver is George Russell, indeed, who swoops round the outside. It's Hamilton who got caught up in turn 1 further back. Russell sweeps round and takes the lead of the Spanish Grand Prix. Verstappen second, Norris third, then comes Hamilton.
That slipstream in full effect for George Russell. So Norris came to the inside, tried to hold off Max Verstappen, but Verstappen had his nose in and Norris couldn't come all the way to the inside. They both bunched up in front of 4th place starter George Russell, who then had all the space on the outside and put in a lovely move. So Russell leads. Hamilton and the other Mercedes slipped back, didn't get such a good start.
Yeah, Sergio Perez as well further back, trying to claw his way from outside of the top 10, stuck behind Nico Hülkenberg just on the outskirts of the top 10. It's Russell who leads the Spanish Grand Prix off the back of securing pole position in Canada a couple of weeks ago. Now finds himself back in the lead of a race in Formula 1. Russell, Verstappen, Norris, Hamilton, Leclerc, the top 5. Then it's Sainz, Gasly, Piastri, Ocon and Hülkenberg, the top 10. Perez, Alonso, Stroll, Bottas doing battle for 13th and 14th, with Stroll winning that out for the time being. Then it's Tsunoda, Magnussen, Joe, Sargent, Ricciardo and Albon, all 20 cars still in this race as we start lap 2.
And Verstappen is right underneath the gearbox of Russell as they hit the brakes and turn into the right-hander at the first corner. What a start from George Russell. 4th on the grid, sweeping through to the lead. It was just huge stuff for Mercedes, who have a decent race car, and they had a couple of overtakes to do. They made it immediately. Hamilton's back in 4th on the tail of Norris. This is the sound on board the McLaren, and that's not what Norris needed. We just said how difficult it can be starting from pole. He was aggressive moving to the inside, trying to cut off Verstappen, but his start wasn't quite good enough to hold that inside, and he was cautious then on the brakes. 2 places gone.
Yeah, it was almost like he was keeping such an eye on Verstappen that he couldn't see Russell on the outside. A sweeping move round the outside for the British racer. Verstappen is second, still within a second of George Russell, with DRS now enabled.
He's sensing it, isn't he? Max Verstappen, DRS enabled on lap 2 as they head down towards the final few corners. Long right-hander at turn 12. Then you're into the flat-out stuff, or almost flat-out stuff, even in race trim. Blending out of the throttle. One more corner to go. Russell leading and just extending the gap. I think he slid slightly into the final corner. And Verstappen's going to get DRS.
Might be our best opportunity now, Max. Think wisely.
Think wisely from the message from Jean-Pierre Lambiase as Verstappen makes his move round the outside into turn 1 on Russell. They go wheel to wheel. What a sublime move from Max Verstappen, who takes the lead of the Spanish Grand Prix into turn 1 on lap 3. It's Verstappen who leads Russell, then it's Norris. Hamilton signs the top 5.
What an incredible move from Verstappen. Russell did not make that easy. He covered the inside, gave Verstappen a chance on the brakes, and Max was so late on the brakes, turned it in, gave Russell the space on the inside, and George kept it tight, gave him gave Verstappen the space on the outside. So close, but a brilliant move, and that's the lead of the race now for the Red Bull.
And this is the last thing Lando Norris needed. He's now a further second back from George Russell, who has already dropped outside of a second to the leader, Max Verstappen. That means he won't get the aid of DRS, the flap in the rear wing opening when you are within a second of the car in front in the designated zones around this track, the start-finish straight, and between turns 9 and 10. Russell with the fastest lap, but falling back from Verstappen.
He's already over a second back from Verstappen. The straight line speed on the Red Bull with DRS was serious there. They've gone for a slightly higher downforce configuration, which means that in theory the top speed won't be there, but when they opened the flap in the rear wing there, Verstappen had a huge overspeed. Looked like he shouldn't have had a chance coming onto the straight, but then did, and pulled it off with a brilliant move. Russell's got to try and stay within DRS range and stay close to the race leader now to make a fight of this.
Close, not me, Carlos.
Charles Leclerc on the radio there. Last lap around, Sainz made the move to get ahead of Charles Leclerc. Sainz 5th, Leclerc 6th. Gasly holding on to his position in 7th. Oscar Piastri has made up a position from where he started. He's in 8th, with Ocon in the 2nd Alpine holding on to 9th, and Nico Hülkenberg rounding out the top 10. It is the top 10 who all score points. 25 for the winner, all the way down to 1 point for 10th place. And Sergio Perez, though, right behind Nico Hülkenberg in the 2nd Red Bull, trying to recover after a poor qualifying, compounded with a 3-place grid penalty. Alonso 12th, Stroll, Bottas, Tsunoda 15th, and it's Magnussen, Joe, Ricciardo, Sargent and Alex Albon who started from the pit lane 20th and last, now onto the back of his teammates. Here's Carlos Sainz on the radio.
He touched me. Coffee collided and that forced me up. He touched my rear right, so I was clearly ahead.
So that's Carlos Sainz talking about a seeming incident between himself and his teammate Charles Leclerc. We haven't actually seen that in the flesh, but obviously that happened when Sainz was getting through on Leclerc.
Yeah, they're still very, very close. Leclerc dummying a move on Sainz into the first corner, but he's not quite close enough to send in a lunge. But yeah, they had a little bit of a small brewing storm in China, the two Ferrari drivers. Sainz leaving the team. Leclerc stays and is joined by Lewis Hamilton for next year. And Sainz on his home race has had a decent weekend in terms of performance, but Ferrari are not quite where they want to be. Obviously, they're a little touch. Sainz has got his nose ahead, and that could be quite important for their strategy later on.
Well, we're just getting another look at the start, and it was tight at the front. Norris absolutely forcing Verstappen onto the grass, and then Russell, who started on the far right of the grid, sweeping to the left-hand side as they came into the braking zone, Jolyon.
I think Norris was too cautious at the first corner. It was brilliant from Russell. Had the double slipstream move to the outside. Verstappen only had half a car on the inside of Norris, but Norris was very early on the brakes. He put a big squeeze on Verstappen, who had to take to the grass down to turn 1.
I pushed off to the grass.
Understood.
Verstappen complaining on the radio about being pushed off into the grass. Verstappen and Norris, good friends off the track, but clearly not afraid to get elbows out on it. This is the sound of George Russell's start.
Yeah, he had a good look because he was right behind the Red Bull that threw up grass as Verstappen was squeezed onto it, but there's no investigation about that. Russell then moved to the outside, had a clear view into the first corner and used the space really well. Laid on the brakes, a lovely move that did give him the lead.
Mercedes, who have been bringing upgrades incrementally over the last few races, seem to have finally found the right direction forward, with both Russell and Hamilton running inside the top 4 as it currently stands. Also just seeing a replay of Fernando Alonso, who started down in 10th, getting all crossed up coming into the braking zone, having to take to the runoff area. That cost him positions, and he fell behind Perez. Yeah,
lost a little bit of concertinas up in the midfield at the first corner, chicane right and then left, as we're getting another shot of that. It was a beautiful move that Verstappen made on the outside. He had to commit on the brakes. He wasn't there. It wasn't just a simple DRS drive-by. It was full commitment, and really, really lovely stuff from Max. And the Ferraris touch, a small touch from Leclerc onto Sainz, and I kind of agree with Sainz's view on that. Leclerc coming in from late on the inside, he's defending the position, and Sainz ends up actually cutting that corner to avoid the contact. I imagine the stewards won't be looking too closely at that. Sainz looked like he had the place sort of taken, and Leclerc just sent it in a little bit, hopefully, I'd suggest.
Yeah, well, I believe that incident has already been investigated and reviewed. No further investigation, leaving the track and gaining an advantage for Carlos Sainz. So he's holding on to that 5th place at the moment. His teammate about half a second behind him. It's lap 7 of 66 of the Spanish Grand Prix. It's Max Verstappen who leads this race with over a second ahead of George Russell in the Mercedes. Then it's Lando Norris, Hamilton, Sainz the top 5, Leclerc, Gasly, Piastri, Ocon and Hulkenberg the top 10.
I tell you what, Jolyon, the gaps are not opening up between the cars, are they? It's 6 laps into the race, and there's hardly any drivers in the field that have more than a second, or much more than a second, between the two of them. It suggests to me that there's a lot of tyre management going on at the moment as they try and make sure that this first stint can go as long as it can.
Well, that's the risk of starting on the soft. You get good grip off the line. It's a long run to the first corner. If you started on anything but the soft, you'd fear going backwards quite quickly and losing track position. So everyone starts on the soft, but then you have to nurse it. Otherwise, you get rid of it too soon and leave yourself exposed later on in the race. So it does look like that's what's happening. Verstappen's got a second and a half now to Russell behind, and as they come through on this lap, that gap actually opens up by another 3/10. So Verstappen is just eking it away, and Norris is left still within DRS range of Russell. He looks like the man most likely to put on a challenge at the moment in the top order.
Yeah, I think Norris and Hamilton might well be closing in. On George Russell. Norris 6/10 behind Russell, and then Hamilton a further half a second or so behind him. Here's Russell on the radio.
Just confirm pushing level.
More than the others.
I'm assuming that's George Russell's radio being asked, how much are you pushing out there?
Well, you say more than the others. That's interesting, because he obviously has a gauge of what other people are doing, and he's thinking he's actually doing too much for what he wants to ideally put the stress on these soft tyres. He's feeling uncomfortable, Russell, in second place.
2 seconds back is George Russell from Max Verstappen. Now Verstappen with the fastest lap of this race. If you hold on to the fastest lap, by the time the checkered flag comes and you finish within the top 10, you also get an extra point for your troubles. Russell second, then it's Norris slowly closing in with Hamilton behind him too. Then it's a little bit of a couple of tenths back to Carlos Sainz, Leclerc. Gasly doing well to hold on to 7th. He's got Oscar Piastri though in the McLaren chasing him down. Then it's Ocon and Hulkenberg rounding out the point scorers.
So Lando Norris has got a job of work to do here. Max Verstappen is starting to make some significant inroads into George Russell. He's just crossed the line at the end of lap 8, 2.2 seconds ahead. Norris just under a second behind Russell. Russell's clearly uncomfortable, pushing harder than the others to stay at this pace, and he's not even staying at Verstappen's pace. If Norris isn't going to let Verstappen get too far ahead, which could be a decisive advantage even at the first pit stop, he needs to try and do something about Russell as soon as possible.
He's been stuck within DRS range for all of these laps, really. Russell took the lead, was passed by Verstappen at the end of lap 2, and since then, as we're on lap 9, Norris has been staring at the back of the Mercedes ahead of him. Within DRS, he's now exactly 1 second back, so he's going to be on the cusp of it, but it's going to be frustrating for Norris, the pole sitter, watching the champion, Max Verstappen, just eke it out, few tenths each lap, and Russell, we know, feeling uncomfortable in the Mercedes, feeling like he's having to push and work really hard to be staying in second. Mercedes have got 2 cars in this fight as well. Hamilton is still within a second of Norris, and he maybe looks like the quicker of the 2 Mercedes, and he has been decent in race trim this year as well.
Further down the field, Fernando Alonso is having a bit of a miserable start to his home Grand Prix. He's just lost 13th place to Valtteri Bottas in the last couple of laps, and now he's being hounded by Kevin Magnussen in the Haas as they arc their way through the left-hander of turn 10, which feeds into the right-hander of turn 12 as you begin to close out the lap. Remove the old chicane that all the drivers used to hate around this circuit that finished off the lap. Now it's two long arcing right-handers. Alonso still ahead of Magnussen. Meanwhile, the battle for 7th also rages on, with Pierre Gasly trying to hold on for what would be his best result of the season so far in the Alpine. But he's got Oscar Piastri, who hasn't felt comfortable in that McLaren so far this weekend, certainly in comparison to his teammate. Qualified down in 10th. Indeed, he didn't really get a proper run in Q3, made a bit of a hash of it. But he's hounding Gasly for 7th as they make their way downhill through turns 7 and 8.
If Piastri can clear Gasly, get into 7th, he might even be able to sneak up on the back of the Ferraris as well. Could yet be able to help out his teammate. He managed to clear Ocon at the start. Now it's just Gasly. He's putting pressure on with the DRS now down towards the braking zone. For turn 10, hammer on the left pedal and turn it into an opened up left-hander as of a couple of years ago. Sweeps him into the right-hander at turn 12. Then there's just two very fast corners, and that's where it's difficult to stay close enough to then use the DRS to your advantage and make a move into turn 1. How crucial was Verstappen's pass? He had one big chance at turn 1 on start of lap 3 then it would have been, and he was just incisive. It was actually brilliant from Verstappen.
I think this is the thing about this season, Jolien, for me. Obviously, the first 5 races have been very different in character from the second 5 races. Red Bull's advantage has basically been removed by particularly McLaren, but also to a degree Ferrari and Mercedes. And yet it's Verstappen consistently, race after race, who absolutely nails it, maximises everything out of the car. That's why he won in Canada 2 weeks ago. Arguably, that's why he won in Imola before that as well. And it could even be these 2 key moves at the start and then at the beginning of lap 3 that are going to win this race for him already.
He is good in the crucial phases. He is so good. And the team are as well, Red Bull. They're in perfect harmony in terms of their on-track performance, and it does mean that he now has a 2.7 second advantage. The comparison is always Sergio Perez, started 11th, is still 11th, and is stuck within a second of Nico Hülkenberg in the Haas. Verstappen, 1 lap, bam, onto the back of Russell, made it through, brilliant move, and now he's got the race. It's early stages, but he's got the race exactly where he wants it.
Kevin Magnussen in the Haas further down has just come into the pits along with Zhou Guanyu in the Sauber and Yuki Tsunoda in the RB. They've all exchanged their soft tyres for a set of the medium compounder tyres. They're all now plumb lost. I tell you what, Carlos Sainz and the 2 Ferraris with Charles Leclerc just behind are closing in on Hamilton, but they get to within about half a second and then they just start to fade a bit. Is that sort of the cause of maybe a little bit of a DRS train, as the sound you're hearing is Alonso still pushing out there, down in 13th, trying to get onto the back of Valtteri Bottas in front of him, just pushing it a little too hard out of turn 12 and dipping a wheel onto the gravel.
Yeah, so the drivers further back making pit stops. This should then free up some space in the top order to then have a pit stop and come out in clear air and look for an undercut move as well. So strategy is about to come into play for the first time in this afternoon's race. Perez has now made it past Nico Hülkenberg finally on lap 12, so he's up into the top 10 as well.
It's lap 12 of 66. Max Verstappen leads by over 2.5 seconds to George Russell, and it's Lando Norris in 3rd. Hamilton, Sainz make up the top 5. Leclerc is 6th. Then it's Gasly still in front of Piastri, who is 8th. Ocon and Perez now make up the top 10. Hülkenberg down to 11th, ahead of Stroll and Alonso, the 2 Aston Martins in 12th and 13th. Ricciardo is 14th. Albon, who started from the pit lane, starting on the medium tyre, has worked his way up to 15th, ahead of his teammate Logan Sargent. Zhou is 17th, has pitted. So too is his teammate Bottas behind, along with Magnussen and Tsunoda, who make up the remainder of the 20 drivers in the field. And just flashing up on our screens, an incident in Kevin Magnussen's full start incident has been noted by race stewards, and another one as well for Nico Hülkenberg leaving the track and gaining an advantage. Reviewed, no further investigation for those as Hülkenberg comes into the pits.
We saw Ricciardo penalised 5 seconds for creeping in Montreal last time out at the start. Could well be the case for Magnussen this time. Perez, it was a simple pass on the inside of Nico Hulkenberg finally to get himself in the top 10.
Had a bit of a movement in 7. Understood.
That was a big snap for Verstappen. Turn 7, the left-hander in the middle sector. Got a little bit wide on the exit. How many times have we seen this as well? Verstappen, he's now 3.1 seconds clear of Russell, so it's not cost him any time. But he's not cruising out there. It cost him a potential win in Miami when he took the bollard out. But the amount of times you think he's just doing a Max Verstappen drive out front, but he is pushing on always, and he is having to because of the pace of the Mercedes and the McLarens now.
Now, George Russell is currently second. He's now, even with that little mistake from Verstappen, over 3 seconds back. Norris is around about a second away from Russell. There's a lot of talk, Johnny, about the undercut here being quite powerful. Can you just tell us what is the undercut, and could Norris play that on Russell if he continues at this pace?
He absolutely could. He's 1.1 seconds back as we get a few more pitters from further down in the order. Ocon, and this is the sound of the Red Bull crew going to work on Sergio Perez's car from 10th position. As a decent stop. Not one of their best, actually, 3.2 seconds. But the undercut is when drivers, so they've just done 14 laps in the case of Sergio Perez on a set of soft tyres. Those soft tyres degrade. With every lap, they get a little bit worse as you wear the rubber down and they start to overheat. Then you come in, as Perez has just done, you put on a new set and you immediately find the grip again. So you're much quicker as soon as you pit. But then again, those tyres will go away and you'll have to be in for another pit stop in today's race. And so you can make an undercut as we jump aboard with Norris.
Lando, if we think Prix might help, we're considering box to overtake. Yeah, I'm very quick. I'm stuck. Let's do something.
Okay, so this is Norris on the radio there with his engineer Will Joseph saying box to overtake. If Russell pits, then Norris stays out. He wants the clear air. If Russell doesn't pit, Norris will peel in. They come through the penultimate corner, and I don't think either of them pitted, so it's not going to happen on this lap. It's 1.2 seconds the gap. That is undercut range for McLaren, but they don't want to pit Norris now, which will give him a long run for the rest of the race, and also he could come out in traffic, which I think he would right now with the likes of Stroll and Alonso who haven't pitted. So they've got to make sure if you pit, take the undercut to try and attack the driver ahead when they pit, that slow stop for Gasly, horrible for Alpine.
It's the right rear for Pierre Gasly's teammate Esteban Ocon pitted last time around. 6.7 seconds for Gasly. That's going to drop him out of the points. He was running in 7th, keeping the McLaren of Piastri behind. The team managed to get the tyre on. He feeds out onto the main straight, down into turn 1, and he's overtaken by his teammate Ocon. That was a rough pit stop for Pierre Gasly, as Kevin Magnussen has given a 5-second time penalty for a false start, like you mentioned, Jolien. Daniel Ricciardo got a few races ago.
So Norris has got just enough time to stop and get out ahead of Stroll and Alonso, and I don't think he'd be that worried about Stroll anyway. We have a massive tyre advantage and a car advantage. He should be able to get through. The problem he's got, if we've just seen Russell has been told, a little graphic on the screen, he's been told to pit, so Norris's opportunity to undercut Russell is gone.
Russell comes into the pits then. Norris stays out. So that changes things up for Norris and McLaren, as to get down to the speed limit in the pit lane for George Russell, 80 kilometres an hour. Hits the pit limiter but has to slam onto the brakes. Big lock up on the front left. Won't matter. He gets rid of those soft tyres, but it's a slow stop for George Russell. Bit of trouble on the rear tyres. He's released. So too is the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz, side by side in the pit lane. Advantage Sainz to close up to the back of Russell after a 5.3 second stop, but Sainz has to slot back in as it's one-way traffic towards the end of the pit lane entry into turn 1. Russell holding on in front of Sainz, but that stop would have cost him.
Well, they were pitting to defend the undercut from Norris. As you said, Andrew, that gap had just opened up. Norris was about to come in. Russell covers him off, but he lost 3 seconds with a slow stop. The second slow stop in 2 laps, one for Gasly, now Russell. That could be really costly, and Norris could probably pit this lap now, and he's improving on this time. He knows this is his chance to pit 1 lap later, a rare overcut, but because Mercedes have just missed that pit stop, 3 seconds is a lot of time.
Yeah, so pit stops have been happening over the course of the last few laps. As Verstappen, who still leads, though, has yet to pit. The top three have not pitted in this race yet. Norris second, Hamilton third. Then it's Charles Leclerc now in fourth, Piastri fifth, Stroll, Alonso, Russell, Sainz, Ricciardo, the top 10.
So Norris didn't pit, and I think that's because he only had 23 seconds on George Russell. Lewis Hamilton is pitting. The 23 seconds is really marginal. He probably might not have made it, so that's why they decided to stay out and bank the lap time advantage on track.
Hamilton comes into the pits, much quicker stop for the Mercedes team this time around, 2.3 seconds as he trundles towards the end of the pits. He's got rid of his softs and put the medium tyre on. He feeds out behind the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz, making his way through turn one.
So Sainz has undercut Hamilton. That's the move that has happened. That's for a net fourth place. Here's Norris.
Lando, it's possible we could cover Russell this lap. What do you think?
No, I think we need to go get Max.
Oh,
I like it. I like that. Go and get Max. 4.5 seconds split Verstappen and Lando Norris. Norris started on pole position, defended hard down to turn one, and in the end it was George Russell who initially took the lead, having got a great slipstream for the drivers ahead of him, but Verstappen getting in front of Norris for the time being, as Verstappen is told though to pit.
and on the last lap Norris was 0.8 quicker than Verstappen. The McLaren has pace now, it's in clear air. He was thinking about trying to overcut Russell, stayed out and was much quicker than Verstappen. In comes the Red Bull. Oh, it's a great start from the Red Bull crew, as we're more used to seeing. Verstappen will come out 1.9 second stop. That's as quick as you get.
1.9. Great work from the team at Red Bull as Verstappen feeds out. Lando Norris continues to stay out. He's now making his way through turn 4 and takes over the lead of this race. It's Norris, Leclerc, Piastri, Verstappen, Russell for the time being. Further back, though, who have both pitted, Carlos Sainz and Lewis Hamilton battling over what is sixth on the road at the moment. Hamilton all over the back of Carlos Sainz as they arc through the right-hander of turn 3. There's almost contact between the front right of Hamilton and the rear left of Sainz, but Sainz holds on as they make their way through the right-hander of turn 5.
In the first stint of this race, the first 14 laps, Sainz was looking at the back of Hamilton. He pitted a lap earlier. Mercedes had to pit Russell first to cover off Norris. That left Hamilton going a lap longer. He's now staring at the back of the Ferrari. They've swapped places, and he was so close to hitting the back of the Ferrari coming through turn 3. He's got a lot of grip on these fresh tyres, and he is tucked in within the DRS range, just a few tenths back as they head down towards turn 10.
Sainz won't want to make this easy for Hamilton either. Sainz on home soil, never scored a podium round here, frustrated with his qualifying yesterday, didn't feel he had the pace in the car to fight for pole position, out-qualified by his teammate, of course, and the man chasing him right now in the Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton, will be the man who takes his Ferrari seat next year. Sainz still on the market, looking for a place to go as we now start lap 19, down the start-finish straight. Sainz ahead of Hamilton, but Hamilton with DRS, dummies it to the inside, then makes it a firm move down the inside into turn 1 for Hamilton, forces Sainz up onto the curbs. There's almost contact. I think there was a bit of wheel-to-wheel contact, but Hamilton forces the issue and makes the move stick. Hamilton now ahead of Sainz.
Incisive, aggressive. I like that from Lewis Hamilton. He had to make it on the brakes. He had the DRS and the slipstream to get close. Sainz covered off the middle of the road, and then Hamilton sent it in, and there was a tiny bit of contact. He wasn't quite ahead at the apex. Had to bounce Sainz slightly wide. Here's Carlos Radio.
Radio. Check the onboard finish directiva.
Copy.
Straight on the radio with that one. I wonder, it was a similar issue when Sainz passed Leclerc towards the start of this race, so I'm sure the stewards will look at it, but I think it was fair game, Jolien.
Well, there's actually a little bit of carbon fibre comes off from the underside of the Ferrari, I think, as well, for good measure. Technically, Hamilton was behind at the apex, so he isn't entitled to force the driver on the outside off, which you sometimes can be. The stewards may look at it. It was an aggressive pass from Hamilton, no doubt. Absolutely on the limit.
I don't know about that. He's got a lot of his car alongside. It was almost front wheel to front wheel. Not quite, but almost. I think he might get away with that.
Lap 20 of 66. Lando Norris leads this race after Verstappen pitted last lap around. Norris with a 4.5 second gap ahead of Charles Leclerc. Piastri in third, then it's Verstappen. Russell is fifth ahead of Hamilton. Sainz, Gasly, Ocon, Perez, the top 10. Then it's Hülkenberg, Bottas, Joe, Magnussen and Stroll, the top 15. Make that Stroll, then Magnussen, the top 15, as Stroll's just got through on K-Mag. Alonso has just pitted and fed out in 16th ahead of Tsunoda and Ricciardo. Sargent and Albon, the two Williams who have had a rough weekend so far, down in 19th and 20th spot.
So Norris staying out. He's still on that soft tyre that he started on lap 20. He's followed right now by Leclerc and Piastri. None of those have pitted, and then it's Verstappen and the two Mercedes. Right now, if Norris pitted, he's going to come out behind Lewis Hamilton. So he's giving up track position, but he will have fresher tyres later on. And this is the sound on board the McLaren, starting another lap.
So Piastri is the car right now ahead of Max Verstappen. Piastri hasn't stopped yet. Piastri started this race down in 9th place. I wonder, Jolene, could McLaren here try and play a bit of a team game with Oscar Piastri and almost instruct him to make it as hard as possible to find a bit more time and a gap between Norris and Verstappen?
I think they'll try. Verstappen is right now with Piastri, but he's about to make mincemeat of him, I'm sure, with the fresh tyres. The pace offset is just so much. He's 2 seconds a lap quicker than Piastri.
Now he's noted and reported to race control. They are looking into it.
That's the latest on the Hamilton-Sainz situation as well. It is easy for Max Verstappen, who slides down the inside of Oscar Piastri through turn 7, uphill through the slight kink of 8, round the fast right-hander of 9, onto the back straight. Verstappen through on Piastri.
Yeah, you don't get too many moves at turn 7, but with the fresh tyres, it was just straight away for Verstappen. So he did that without losing too much time. Interestingly, Piastri is a second a lap slower than Norris right now, and Norris is extending this soft tyre run pretty well, considering he's on a tyre that was meant to be falling apart quickly. He's managed to get the tyre life to lap 22. Piastri now peels in, having done as much as he possibly could to keep Verstappen at bay. I think we've got a race on our hands here, a direct fight, Verstappen and Norris, because Norris will have an advantage on tyres when he pits. He'll have to do some overtaking, but we've seen it's possible with a good tyre advantage.
He will, and just to give you an idea of the mountain he's got to climb though, and it's not going to be easy, he's currently got a 14-second advantage over Verstappen, so when he pits, that advantage is going to come down because Verstappen's got fresh tyres and he's lapping faster than Norris at the moment. So 14 seconds with a 24 second pit stop time. He's going to come out 10 seconds behind Verstappen. Then he'll have to extend the second stint again, presumably, and come at him in the final stint on much fresher tyres, as fresher as he can get, while giving himself enough time to catch and pass.
But I just think it's encouraging how the McLaren is looking after its tyres better than those cars around him. Oh, I say the McLaren, Norris. Piastri was not able to replicate that.
The situation is we've lost position to Max, Russell, Hamilton, Sainz, but we're picking up a good tyre delta. 6 laps in some of them already. Keep going.
Explained very neatly.
There's the instruction from Will Joseph, Lando Norris's race engineer, who continues and embarks on lap 23 of 66. You're listening to BBC Radio 5 Live's coverage of the Spanish Grand Prix with myself, Harry Benjamin. Alongside me is the former Renault Formula One driver Jolien Palmer and the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson. Elsewhere on 5 Live this afternoon, coming up, we've got T20 World Cup action in the cricket. USA and England looking to secure their place in the semi-finals, and then of course continued coverage of the Euros from Germany. A big game this evening, 8 o'clock kickoff for Scotland and Hungary. Scotland can still qualify if they beat Hungary. We'll have build up to that ahead of an 8 o'clock kickoff right here on 5 Live. Right now though, this is live coverage of the Formula One. It's round 10 of the Formula One season. Lando Norris currently leads this race. He has yet to pit along with Charles Leclerc. They're 1 and 2 at the moment. The gap is 6 seconds. It's Max Verstappen though who has the net lead. He's about 5.5 seconds back from second place. Leclerc in third. Then it's Russell, Hamilton, the top 5, Sainz, Gasly, Ocon, Perez, Piastri, the top 10, as Lando Norris, Jolene, is finally given the call to come into the pits.
And he peels to the right hand side through the final corner, still very quick even in the narrow pit lane, gets it down with a lock up to the speed limit. And now how good can the McLaren crew be? It was 1.9 seconds for Red Bull, an amazing stop for them. Here's the McLaren response.
Hits his marks outside his garage in the grid spot, gets rid of the soft tyres, sticks on the medium tyres. 2.4 second stop, not as quick as that 1.9 we saw from Verstappen and Russell, and already Verstappen goes through, so too does Russell, then Hamilton. Sainz will feed through as well up into 5th, so Norris breaks into the right-hander of turn 1, feeds out after his pit stop in 6th, so he's lost ground for the time being, but he's got the advantage of fresher tyres.
And Leclerc now leads, but will pit on this lap, so then we'll be into our race order of Verstappen, Russell, Hamilton, then Sainz, and Norris will be in 5th position now. The pole sitter fell down to 3rd at the start, was trying to get back ahead of George Russell. They've changed strategy, they're doing something different to everyone else apart from Leclerc, and he's going to have some payback now in the remaining 42 laps of this Grand Prix, but he's got some overtaking to do.
Further back, outside of the top 10, Hülkenberg sits in 11th, in front of the two Saubers, 12th and 13th for Bottas and Zhou. It's been a tough weekend all round and a tough race so far for Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin. Alonso behind his teammate in 15th, and it's Kevin Magnussen who has a 5-second time penalty to serve after a false start. Ricciardo and RB also struggling this weekend, 17th along with his teammate Tsunoda behind in 18th, Sargent 19th, Williams occupying the last two spots in this race, 19th and 20th. Charles Leclerc comes in for his pits, the last of those to make a stop. It's a 3-second stop for Leclerc. It's not the quickest we've seen, and he should come out. I think Gasly will go through as the Frenchman in the Alpine makes his way down towards turn 1. I think the Ferrari of Leclerc will split the two Alpines as he feeds into 7th with Ocon just behind in 8th.
Gasly had his own slow stop, didn't he? In the first of the Alpines, came up behind Ocon, has made it through, and is now having a decent drive once again. So Alpine,
it's a good recovery there.
Yeah, they are. They're running 6th and 8th. They've both made a pit stop, still looking at double points. Here's Carlos Sainz.
They reported no further investigation. I know it's harsh, but let's go our race. I don't understand why there's the rule book, but we don't follow it. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think according to the rule book, I think Sainz has a complaint. I think Hamilton has to be ahead at the apex to be able to force your rival off on the exit. It was a nice looking lunge in the context of racing and what we like to see, an aggressive move, but he didn't get ahead of the apex, and that is what the rule book was there to try and give some more guidance on what is a penalty and what's not. So that's why Sainz, I think, is not particularly happy with it. It was a close racing. It was a tight fight. Hamilton was super committed. Sainz is still running behind him. He's got his mirrors full of Lando Norris now, and he's going to have to get over it.
Yeah, well, when Hamilton got through on Sainz, he fell back by a couple of seconds. Last lap around, though, Sainz trying to find some more time within his Ferrari because he's got Norris all in his mirrors. Norris with the advantage of fresher tyres as they arc their way through the right-hander of turn 3. Then it's slightly downhill, slightly off camber braking into the right-hander of turn 4 as you're drifted uphill to then downhill braking for turn 5 in the left-hander. Norris still behind Sainz on that occasion. Lando Norris with the fastest lap last time around too.
He needs to pass Sainz on the next lap. He doesn't want to lose too much time now fighting with a Ferrari that isn't massively in podium contention at the moment. He's still thinking about Max Verstappen in the race lead. In going long, he's got a tyre advantage. He doesn't want to now dwindle away more precious lap time to Verstappen. The gap between them is 10 seconds, and Norris has a tyre advantage. If he can clear Sainz, he's right on the tail of the Ferrari now coming through turn 12. He's going to have a brilliant opportunity straight away. We've still got race on.
And a reminder, a pit loss is around about 23 seconds. Here's Leclerc on the radio.
Why are we on plan A?
We're in line with everyone else. That was the choice.
So in line with everyone else, that's what's going on Leclerc's Ferrari. Meanwhile, the other Ferrari of Carlos Sainz is overtaken nice and easily by Lando Norris with the aid of DRS. Closes up to the back of the Ferrari, pulls out to the right-hand side, down the inside into turn 1 for Norris as Leclerc gets through on Pierre Gasly. So it's Norris 4th, Sainz in 5th, Charles Leclerc now in 6th. Verstappen leads by over 6 seconds to George Russell, and Lewis Hamilton within a second of his teammate now in 3rd.
Without a safety car intervention, this is Verstappen v Norris for the win. The Mercedes are second and third. They're going to be a little bit of a headache for Norris to pass right now because they're running line astern. Hamilton within a second of George Russell might create some sort of DRS train and frustrate Lando Norris, who's got a couple of seconds to make up first before he gets there. The fight for the win is Verstappen v Norris. That's the gap to keep an eye on, and it was the same on the last lap. Still 10 seconds with Norris being held up for one lap behind Carlos Sainz. The battle for the podium right now is the Mercedes duo, really, potentially Sainz and potentially Norris if he cannot make it through cleanly.
And that will still give the two Mercedes so much to work for as well, having had a tough couple of years, really, for the Mercedes team, failing to understand the new ground effect regulations that came in force for Formula One back in 2022. So many different concepts created on that car, none of them really cutting through. But now it seems over the last few races, the Mercedes team with George Russell and Lewis Hamilton have found a way forward and are currently fighting it out for the podium positions. Remember, last time out they weren't too far away from the podium either, with George Russell on pole position, setting an identical lap time in Canada to Max Verstappen. That's how quick they were out there on that track. Very different circuit though that we come to here, and one that everyone's been treating as more of an indicator of the pecking order that we're getting. And right now, well, it looks like Verstappen certainly does have a fight on his hands with the McLaren of Norris.
It's nice to see, isn't it, in this Grand Prix, because Red Bull have been in the mix for the last few races. We've seen Verstappen dominance for a year and a half, but in Miami, Norris beat him and showed the McLaren pace with their upgrades. In Imola, Norris chased him home all the way. Ferrari won in Monaco. Mercedes were on pole in Canada. We thought coming back here it might be back to Red Bull domination. Okay, Verstappen's leading the race, but he didn't take pole, and he's still got a fight on his hands. So it's encouraging to see. I don't know if this is still the absolute performance indicator for the season. I think this is more of an outlier circuit now with how the season is, really. Long, fast corners. We have a lot more longer straights, big braking zones on the new look calendar. 24 races with more and more street circuits coming on and temporary tracks. But certainly it's the start of the European season where you get more of these fast-flowing corners. We've got Austria next, then Silverstone, which is full of fast corners. It's an indicator for the next few races, and I still like it. Still close.
Still sold then, still on it, as there's a few darkening clouds lurking above the circuit. Oh, they're darkish clouds. Come on, Jolie, don't give me that look.
You love a cloud watch.
Well, it's radio.
A little bit of rain.
You've got to build the picture, haven't you? Dark, ominous clouds, but then on the other side of the circuit, there's white puffy clouds and blue sky. So there was rain overnight, and there was about a 40% chance coming into this race.
Tyres are very inconsistent.
Okay, copy that, Max.
Verstappen tyres are very inconsistent. So he's on that medium compounder tyre. 6.7 seconds is the gap he has ahead of Russell. So Verstappen is not comfortable out there completely.
He's comfortable with Russell. He's quicker by and large. On the last lap he dropped away, must have made a small mistake and is not happy with the tyres. But on this lap he extends the gap again by a quarter of a second. 1 minute 19.7 for Verstappen. Russell not in the 20s. Hamilton is, and so is Norris. Third and fourth, and Norris is now within DRS range of Lewis Hamilton, the two Brits. He's now got to try and make this through pretty quickly, because these are the sort of times where he doesn't want to lose precious lap time to Verstappen. The gap is now 9 seconds, so he's still eating into Verstappen's lead.
Well, it is the Spanish Grand Prix. Verstappen leads Russell. Hamilton, who has now got Norris in his mirrors. Sainz is fifth ahead of Leclerc. Then it's Gasly, Piastri, Ocon and Perez. Those are the top 10 and your current point scorers on lap 30 of 66. But elsewhere on the BBC network, about 45 minutes or so ago, getting underway the final from Queen's. Updates throughout this afternoon, and we can go for one of those now with Russell Fuller.
Tommy Paul seized his two opportunities to break decisively in the first set of the final, which he's won by 6-1 against the Italian Lorenzo Musetti.
Thanks, Russell, and we'll have continued updates from the final at Queen's, and you can watch it live now on BBC One. This is BBC Radio 5 Live's coverage of the Spanish Grand Prix. Lap 31 of 66. The fight is on between Max Verstappen, who has the lead in his Red Bull over George Russell, but it's Lando Norris in the McLaren, having stayed out longer before coming into the pits, who is currently carving his way through the field. He sits fourth at the moment. His next target will be Lewis Hamilton as he closes closes up to the back of the 7-time champion through turns 1 and 2, arcs to the right-hander, has to settle behind Hamilton for the time being.
Hamilton covered the middle of the road. He doesn't want to make this easy for Norris. He's still in contention for a podium. He's got his teammate just ahead, and Mercedes could play a team game with 2 of their drivers in the mix. Let's not forget Perez is 9th, Piastri's 8th, the other Red Bull and the other McLaren not in contention. It's a bit of strategy that Mercedes could play, and Hamilton is still just behind his teammate as well. So they're frustrating Norris at this stage. Can't make it through.
What's interesting though, Jolene, is on the last lap they didn't play the strategy. Hamilton is just over 1 second behind Russell. Like, literally, when I say just over, I mean 1.1 seconds, 1.0. Russell has not backed off to give Hamilton the DRS yet, which I'm surprised about.
And Hamilton sliding, coming through turn 11 as well. Russell still just tantalisingly more than a second, and this time Norris is closer, coming now through the final couple of corners. 13, then it's 14, and he's really close, 3/10 back.
He'll get the aid of DRS down the main straight, will Lando Norris. The rear wing flap opens on cue as he presses the button. Within a second of Hamilton in front, closes up to the rear wing of Hamilton, pulls out to the right hand side does Lando Norris, and already before the braking zone beckons, Norris through on Hamilton. Norris up to 3rd, Hamilton down to 4th.
So I was surprised in Canada last time out as well that McLaren didn't try and play the team game on Mercedes when they were running in 2nd and 3rd. The 2 Mercedes pitted late under the safety car, and Russell got quite aggressive with Piastri. Hamilton came through, and it put both McLarens under big pressure. The old truck and trailer of Carlos Sainz in Singapore last year is a great method to defend. Norris knows it only too well because he was sitting second that day, but Hamilton was too far back to keep the DRS and make a DRS train on his teammate, as Piastri was last time. And I wonder if Mercedes are just thinking, Norris is too quick today. They're only going to compromise their race, and they still want to try and keep Carlos Sainz at bay.
They might be. And talking of Carlos Sainz, there's an interesting picture developing there, because he is being closed in on very rapidly by his teammate Charles Leclerc, who's on much fresher tyres. And remember, there was a bit of handbags between them earlier in the race. I wonder what's going to happen between the Ferrari drivers when Leclerc catches.
He's actually having a bit of a shoddy stint right now, Carlos Sainz. Had that fight with Hamilton. There was a little bit of carbon fibre that I think came off in the slight contact between the two of them. Wonder if that's cost Sainz, and he is drifting away from the Mercedes.
Less than a second now between Russell in the Mercedes in 2nd and Norris in 3rd. Closes up under braking, but he'll have to get a bit closer, will Norris, next lap around. Also Sergio Perez in the 2nd Red Bull, who's not really in contention at the moment. I mean, had a poor qualifying, just pitted, and is now down to 14th place. So Perez with still a lot of work to do in the other Red Bull, whilst his teammate leads by almost 8 seconds.
So this is a complication that Norris really doesn't need right now. He's pitted later than Verstappen. He's got much fresher tyres. They're all gone from a soft tyre to a medium, but he's having to use some of the juice from his tyres to make passes on Sainz. Was quite an easy one. Hamilton a little bit harder, and Russell right now is going to be hard again, with George fighting for 2nd place. So he's having to use some of that benefit in just making moves to get back to 2nd place that he was fighting for. And this is how they were before the stop, remember. Russell 2nd, Norris 3rd. But the McLaren pace, I think, in race trim is just that little bit stronger. He's got 6 laps fresher tyres than Verstappen, 8 laps fresher tyres than Russell.
Yeah, we'll see what the lap time difference is in just a few moments as Russell makes his way round the final quarter onto the start finish straight. Then there's Norris, who gets the DRS. Hamilton a little further back now, 1.3 seconds adrift. 7/10 separate Lando Norris in 3rd and George Russell in 2nd. Last time around there was about a 10th difference between them, a 1:21 for George Russell and a 1:20 for Lando Norris. So Norris is coming at him, and the closer he gets though, the more opportunity they will be. This is the sound of Lando Norris's teammate Oscar Piastri down in 8th, down the inside of Pierre Gasly in the Alpine. Nice move for the Australian, who gets the Frenchman for 7th. Gasly now down to 8th with Ocon in 9th. So far Alpine having one of their best weekends, in fact the best weekend of the year for them so far. Gasly 8th, Ocon 9th, with Hülkenberg currently holding on to the final point scoring position in 10th.
Gasly didn't make it too hard there for Piastri to finally make it past the conventional midfielders and get back up into 7th place. They're going to have Perez at some point chasing them down, or maybe trying to undercut him, because Perez has been in for a 2nd stop and has fallen down to 13th. So that's another fight that Alpine are going to have to cling on to their double points, but it's still going okay. Norris now half a second down as they sweep through turn 14. This is going to be a better chance for him.
Onto the main straight, lap 35 of 66 for the Spanish Grand Prix. Right now it's the battle for second place on the road, and it's Lando Norris chasing down George Russell, who darts to the inside of the road, coming into turn 1 late on the brakes, but he gets a bit wobbly on the rear for the Mercedes. That allows Norris to get close and sweep round the outside through the arcing right-hander of turn 3. Norris with the move done, but he still has to defend. Russell trying to come back at him round the outside of the right-hander of turn 4. Norris pushes him to the outside, but Russell will then have the inside for the downhill braking left-hander of turn 5. They're still wheel to wheel. Norris just about with a nose in it into the braking zone once again for the left-hander of turn 7 as they head uphill. Norris holds on. What a battle though between the two Brits, and while they battle, Lewis Hamilton's closed in.
I never thought I'd see a battle like that in Barcelona. That was superb stuff from Norris and then Russell and then Norris again. Half a lap of this circuit that people say you can't race on. It all started with Russell defending, but then gets squirrely into the first corner. Norris came through around the outside of turn 3 in a brilliant pass. But then Russell did the same back to him at turn 4. I think Lando wasn't expecting that. And they went side by side. 7 corners of racing action in Barcelona.
Round of applause, Norris, Russell. And now Russell is only half a second ahead of his teammate Hamilton, who now gets the DRS. Closes up under braking. Russell now under pressure, having to look at his mirrors a bit more at his teammate behind as they make their way through turn 3.
It was brilliant, guys, but how much damage has that done to Norris's tyres outside of turn 3? A long, flat out, well, not quite flat out in race trim, right-hander taken at very high speed. Then Russell went round the outside of him at 4. We're seeing a replay now. Norris cut back out of 5 and finally got the inside into turn 7, but I saw he had a big slide going through 7 and 8. When you've got these Pirelli tyres, especially in a race like this where degradation is circuit, you don't want slides. It overheats the tyre. That could affect Norris's ability to close in on Verstappen now he's got some clear air.
This is the time where he's got to show what he can do on the tyres. Oh, it was just such a great half a lap of racing. Perfectly measured from both drivers. Norris had the tyre advantage and eventually did come out on top. The McLaren crew absolutely loved it in the garage as well. Finally, their drivers back into second place. Remember, he started on pole as well, so this race could have turned out very differently for Lando Norris. But now we can see as Russell peels into the pit, so he's done as much as he could and bails out for a new set of tyres. That unleashes Hamilton to 3rd. Sainz pits as well, which promotes Leclerc up as the lead Ferrari. And Norris can finally unleash the pace that he may have on this medium tyre. He's got a 6-lap tyre advantage on the last lap. He was half a second quicker than Verstappen.
More of that battling, please. Okay, the second vat of pit stops is happening now for those in the front half of the field. Russell pits, Sainz pits 2, 3 seconds for Russell, 2.5 for Carlos Sainz. And I think Russell's gone out on the hard compound of tyre in this stint as well, Andrew.
Both Russell and Sainz to switch to the hard. Are they going to try to go to the end on that tyre? That's the question I would ask.
Okay, lap 37 of 66. Pit stops once again happening. Verstappen leads now. Lando Norris back up into second. The gap between them is just under 8.5 seconds. Then it's Hamilton, Leclerc, Piastri, the top 5. Gasly, Russell, Sainz, Ocon, Hülkenberg, the top 10. They are your point scorers if it ends like this. Perez is 11th ahead of Joe, Stroll, Alonso, Ricciardo's in 15th, Albon 16th, Bottas, Tsunoda is 18th, and it's Magnussen and Sargent, all 20 drivers still in this race.
So, Mercedes choosing to use the hard tyre as a Ferrari with Russell and Sainz. This is the sound on board George Russell, who's emerged in 7th position, is looking at the back of Gasly's Alpine, and he might even make the move straight away at turn 10 as a look to the inside. But he's not close enough at that point. Maybe on the exit, big snap. And these tyres don't give a huge amount of grip. Still, the new juice of a new tyre is yielding something fresh rubber for Russell. But this is a suboptimal tyre, but it just means that it can go a longer distance, and he doesn't have to keep going on the old mediums.
Meanwhile, at the front, Lando Norris is closing in on Max Verstappen at about a half a second a lap over the last 2 laps. He's down to 8.2 seconds behind him now. Can he catch him?
Game on. Here we go. Already now, as you say, under 8 seconds. Russell does get past Gasly on the main straight with the help of DRS. That's Russell up to 6th, Gasly down to 7th now. Last round of pit stops, Russell pitted, did come out in 6th. Sainz is currently in 8th spot, as Alonso, Ocon, Stroll all feed into the pits further back outside of the top 10. Verstappen leads 7.8 seconds.
So Russell may well meddle with Norris's charge on Verstappen again, because by pitting early, he's effectively going to re-undercut Lando Norris, assuming he finds the pace on the hard tyre, and he is doing so, having cleared Pierre Gasly now. So that's going to be another complication for Norris to get back towards Verstappen, who has been serene so far today after that lap 2 move. It really paid off for him getting that clear air. Maybe he doesn't even have the fastest car today, Verstappen, but he's made it count at crucial times, and it's given him a much simpler drive. It's not over. The gap is 7.5 seconds as another half a second comes off the lead on the last lap. This is still game on, but Verstappen's having it much more simple than Norris, who every time he goes long has to then go and put on another couple of crucial moves.
Yeah, this is really challenging the brains on the pit wall for McLaren. Verstappen, all he has to do in his Red Bull is just keep going as fast as he can, make the right calls at the right time. This is the sound of the Dutchman making his way through the fast right-hander of turn 9 onto the back straight before you slam the brakes into the left-hander of 10, which sees out the lap through a series of long arcing corners. Now, we removed the chicane last year through the right-hander of turn 12, applies the throttle, and then it's flat out if you dare. Certainly trying to be flat out in qualifying, not so much in this stage of the race. Round the final corner for Verstappen to start what should be lap 40 of 66, over halfway distance now.
A corner that was flat out for him in qualifying, a big lift now with about 50 kilos of fuel on board and some old medium tyres. It will come back towards him by the end of the race, and he'll put on a set of mediums or maybe even a set of softs later on, depending on how long he can go. And the track gets quicker and the car gets better as it gets lighter, but you've got to really reconfigure how to drive these things from Saturday to Sunday.
I have to say, these offset tyre races, when you try and come back at someone from behind and you go long and all the rest of it like Norris is doing, they don't usually work out. And I think if he pulls this off, it'll be an absolutely outstanding performance, having with the proviso that he kind of messed up the first few laps and Verstappen was much more impressive and decisive in those early stages. But if Norris can come back from this, it'll be outstanding. It doesn't feel to me at the moment like it's kind of there, it's tantalising, but it feels like quite a big ask for him.
Well, let's not get all doom and gloom.
Stay tuned. 26 laps to go.
Not doom and gloom. He's already down to another half a second on this lap. He is closing in. But then, we've got, as Jolene was saying, we've got the concertina pit stop thing again, the seesawing, the yo-yoing, the leapfrogging. How's that all going to work out? It's fascinating. It's finely poised. I'm just trying to underline that if Norris pulls this off, it'll be a great, great drive.
It certainly will be. Forecast to be close between yourself and Lewis at the end. That is what George Russell has just been told on the radio. Hamilton's currently 3rd, Russell in 6th. The gap at the moment, just over 20 seconds between them. Russell flying with the fastest lap of the race so far.
There's split strategies at Mercedes. Russell came in, put on the hard tyres to achieve that fastest lap, and Hamilton staying out there 4.5 seconds back from Norris and drifting away from the back of the McLaren. They're being caught by Leclerc now, and that is the fight for the Mercedes between themselves and possibly Leclerc, who pitted the lap after Norris, so he's got fresher tyres as well. He's actually now within 4 seconds of Hamilton. That's the fight for the podium. It's Verstappen v Norris for the win still, and Norris is now getting the gap down to about 6 seconds, and he's actually doing his best lap of the race on this lap, so there's still some life in his tyres.
Leclerc's actually doing a really good job after a difficult first stint, I think, and a difficult qualifying for Ferrari. They're a bit disappointed that their upgrade didn't have the performance in qualifying, at least, that they were hoping for, or at least that the gap, that's quite a misrepresentation actually. The upgrade did perform as expected, but they didn't expect the gap to the front to be as big. But he's now bringing himself into podium contention. It's a good drive from Leclerc.
His teammate, though, Carlos Sainz, has fallen down the order, down to 7th at the moment. So and he had a rough second stint, did Carlos Sainz.
7/10 Norris was quicker than Verstappen on the last lap. I think he might have had a nice run past the back marker to get a bit of time on the straight with the DRS, but he is attacking as he comes past. He's cleared another couple of back markers on this lap as well, round the RB of Yuki Tsunoda. coming through the traffic and still taking loads of time. The gap now under 6 seconds, 24 laps to go, and a pit stop for both drivers. Verstappen will put on new tyres, will extend that gap, and then Norris will charge again. And hopefully we'll have a thrilling finale.
It's poised to be a thriller at the end. Can Lando Norris close in on Max Verstappen? Less than 6 seconds the gap now. The fight is on for the race win by these two drivers. Good friends off track. On track though, not afraid to get their elbows out, but they'll certainly enjoy the opportunity to go toe to toe.
This tire does not feel good. Sliding already.
And that was Russell on the radio complaining of his tyres sliding already. He's down in 6th at the moment, ahead of Carlos Sainz. Last time around they were fairly matched in terms of lap pace.
I wasn't expecting so many people to use the hard tyre today. That was unfancied. Russell's on it and isn't very happy with it. Sainz is on it as well and is similar pace to George Russell, but both Alpines have pitted onto it. Plenty of drivers outside of the top 10 have done the same strategy. It'll be interesting to see then how that'll pan out. Russell will be ahead of Hamilton and Leclerc, who's still homing in on Hamilton. Half a second advantage to him each lap. That's going to be a battle for third position as well.
Yeah, the drivers at the back of the field have all just put the hard compound tyres. Stroll on the hards in 15th, along with Bottas and Zhou, who just fed out and slotted in behind his teammate Magnussen, Tsunoda, Sargent 20th and last. That's what's going on towards the back end of the field. And on the fringes of the points, Gasly is 9th, Alonso 10th, Ocon in 11th right now. Ricciardo and Hülkenberg in a nice fight just behind them in 12th and 13th. So they make their way through the left-hander of turn 10. Ricciardo with the advantage for the time being. Hülkenberg started this race in 13th, Ricciardo down in 17th. So at the moment, it's been a decent race for Ricciardo, who then decides he wants his pit stop, and that releases Nico Hülkenberg into the wind as Ricciardo slams on the brakes, lock up from the front left tyres as he makes his way towards his RB pit crew.
Verstappen drops down to a 1:20 lap time for the first time on this set of mediums. Norris comes through on a 19.5, Verstappen at 20.3, 8 tenths between them. The gap is now 4.5 seconds, and Norris, as he comes down the main straight, goes around Lance Stroll to put a lap on the driver in 15th place, and he can see the race leader ahead.
He can smell Max Verstappen and the race win within his clutches as Hamilton leaves the pit lane. 2.2 second stop for Lewis Hamilton.
And interestingly, whereas George Russell put hard tyres on his Mercedes, Hamilton, with 22 laps to go, has just put softs on his.
That's a punchy call as well, isn't it, from Mercedes? Verstappen's going to have to pit shortly, because Norris is now getting towards undercut range of the race leader, and that's going to force Verstappen to pit. There is just about 4 seconds between them now. Norris again going quickly on this lap, taking time out of Verstappen in the first sector particularly. So now Red Bull have got to be twitchy about an undercut. They're going to have to protect from that, and then Norris can build a tyre advantage for the last stint again.
That 44 of 66, that gap between Max Verstappen, who leads this race, and Lando Norris is just over 4 seconds. Then it's Leclerc in third, about 10 seconds back, as Verstappen is told on cue, Jolien, to box. That means to come into the pits at the end of this lap, and he does so already, making his way towards his Red Bull mechanics who get to work. He hits his marks on his grid spot, and they're going to put a set of soft tyres on. It's a little slow on the front left. His last stop was 1.9. This stop was almost a full second slower. Norris continues onwards and now leads this race.
Get very used to Verstappen's pit stops being seamless. That one wasn't. It felt clunky. It's still less than 3 seconds and perfectly acceptable, but it wasn't absolutely seamless for Verstappen, who's maybe lost a little bit of time. He's gone for new soft.
Verstappen has pitted. This is our chance now.
And Norris has done the fastest first sector of the race as Verstappen pits. So now Verstappen on the new soft will have a lot of pace in that car, but he's got to go 21 laps as well. He's got to take this tyre to the end of the race. Norris can push. He can give it full beans now for the next handful of laps, destroy this medium tyre that he's on, and then go hunting for Verstappen again.
Verstappen has also got a fair bit of traffic in front of him too. He's got Ricciardo, Tsunoda, the two RBs right in front of him as well, so he'll have to get through on them. This is the sound of Lewis Hamilton, who currently occupies 7th spot, having put on the soft compound tyre as he closes up to the back of Carlos Sainz. Almost tries it down the inside of the right-hander of turn 9. No room for two cars through there. Backs out of it, down the back straight, all over the back of Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari.
Yeah, he was too close into turn 9. That's not the conventional place. Turn 10 is not a really conventional place either, but it's more of a chance with the DRS into that corner. He's still sitting behind the Ferrari, but with 2 corners to go, Hamilton on the new soft tyres is about to be unleashed with DRS onto the main straight, and he'll gobble up Carlos Sainz, and that'll be for 6th.
Already moving to the outside, his teammate George Russell just a few metres down the road into turn 1 gets through on Oscar Piastri as Lewis Hamilton makes easy pickings of Carlos Sainz into turn 1. It's Russell 4th, Piastri 5th, Hamilton now 6th, Sainz down to 7th.
And if we wanted to cover Hamilton, we'd have to do it soon. Do you think if we had some delta, you'd pass him again?
Yeah, I'll pass him.
I like the radio messages from Lando Norris today. Forget about the Mercedes. He's all about winning this race. And on that last lap, having been given the hurry up, he has just done a lap that's only a few tenths away from Russell's fastest lap of the race on that new hard. Verstappen's pitted and is going quicker on his new soft now, as he should. But Norris has more pace in the locker and he's extracting it, doing a decent job on quite an old medium.
He's very calm, Lando Norris, about the idea of passing Lewis Hamilton. But that's not the issue. The issue is, can he catch and pass Verstappen? And they've got to be so careful not to give themselves too much work to do.
I'm unsure. Depends if we're here to finish 1st or 3rd.
Well, if you take the way he's been talking all throughout the race, you'd think he wants to go for the win out and out, as Verstappen though now up to speed on his fresh softs with a 1:17.8 sets the fastest lap time, but it's immediately taken away by Hamilton.
Okay, so if Norris pits now as his teammate comes in the other McLaren, if Norris pits now, that'll mean he doesn't have a big tyre advantage over Verstappen. He'll be behind Verstappen, who's just put 1.6 seconds into him on that new soft tyre, and he's going to have no ammo really to throw at Verstappen for the win, but he'll cover off the Mercedes, and that's what he's saying. Do we want to go for first, or do we want to just take the podium? If he stays out there, builds up the tyre advantage, it may be a forlorn attempt at beating Verstappen anyway. It may be too little too late, but at least he'll have more of a chance. He'll have some ammo in the locker, and you never know, a safety car can change a race, as we saw in Canada, as we saw in Miami. There's always a chance if he stays out, but on cue, we're expecting him in, and in he dives.
Norris then into the pits, hits the pit limiter, slows down to 80 kilometres an hour, and will want to get rid of these tyres as quick as possible. It must feel like an age as you trundle down the pit lane, but he's greeted by his mechanics. A sub 3 second stop is what he wants, but it's slightly slower. It's 3.6 seconds for Lando Norris in the pits. That is the last thing he needed. Verstappen goes through into the lead, already into turn 1. Norris feeds out. He's going to get a bit of traffic as well in front of him, but here comes the Mercedes of George Russell. Will he sweep round the outside like he did to take the lead of this race in lap 1, turn 1? No, he won't. Norris holds on to it for the time being. Norris feeds out in second, but he'll have to get those tyres up to speed. Russell right behind though on the slower tyre, the hard tyre.
So soft tyre for Norris as well. Those tyres will come up to working temperature very quickly, and already now he can extend away from George Russell. So first Verstappen, 8 seconds now ahead of Norris, and there's not much of a tyre offset that Norris has. He's taken the sort of safer second place, and let's see what happens for the race win. But that's a really tall order now for him, with no major tyre advantage to go and chase down a Dutchman that's on such good form. But he's covered off Russell, even with a second slower stop than would have been ideal. 3.6 seconds, not perfect. Russell, though, is floundering around on these hard tyres, and he is now joined by his teammate, and that is the battle we've got now. 18 laps left. Hamilton on the tail of George Russell.
Plenty of sport coming up across the 5 Live network today, and we've got news of the toss from the T20 World Cup. Let's head over to Dan Norcross.
It's a must-win game for England, and they've won the toss. They've elected to bowl. It's exactly the right thing to do. They'll be making one change. Chris Jordan comes in for Mark Wood. If they can win this game with about 8 balls to spare or so, that'll take net run rate fears out of it. England have won the toss, and they will bowl.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, England looking to secure their place in the semi-finals. The cricket coverage of the T20 World Cup follows us. This is BBC Radio 5 Live's coverage of the Spanish Grand Prix with myself, Harry Benjamin, former Renault Formula 1 driver Jolyon Palmer, and the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson. It's lap 49 of 66. It's Max Verstappen who leads this race by just over 7 seconds from a chasing Lando Norris. The fight for the win is on, but it is on an absolute knife edge. Russell is third, Hamilton fourth, then it's Sainz and Leclerc, the two Ferraris, fifth and sixth. Perez has worked his way up to seventh after a tough qualifying, Piastri eighth, and the two Alpines of Gasly and Ocon round out the point scorers in 9th and 10th.
So Norris emerged from the pits 8 seconds away from Verstappen. He is now 7 seconds away from Verstappen and absolutely tonking along in the McLaren on that lap, fastest lap of the race, and he's 9/10 quicker than the race leader. It's still race on, 16 laps to go.
Tonking along? That's a new one.
We're rolling with it.
We're rolling with it. We'll go with it. Norris, fastest lap of the race so far, a 1:17.3, 6.8 seconds now. The gap, last lap around for Norris, 1:17.3 for Verstappen, a 1:18.2. Russell behind on the slower hard tyre, a couple of seconds, almost 3 seconds adrift. Hamilton chasing on the soft as the other Red Bull of Sergio Perez, who qualified down in 11th after a 3-place grid penalty, struggling to cut through here. He comes in for another pit stop, his third pit stop of the day, so he'll drop down the order further back. He's currently scrambling for the lower end of the point scoring positions.
Tonking to hit a ball hard and often in an uncontrolled way. To tonk. That's what Norris is doing in the cockpit of the McLaren. He's hitting it hard, but maybe more controlled.
So Lando pushing hard, not saving tyres, Max. All corners.
Lando pushing hard and not saving tyres, Max, all corners. That's what Verstappen is being told by his engineer, Gianpiero Lambiase, who sits on the pit wall. The gap, 6.6 seconds now. It is coming down with every single lap around. We're into the final stages of this race. Over 75% distance covered. Lap 51 of 66. Oh, this is finely poised.
He didn't do enough on the last lap, Norris. Having taken the mighty second out of Verstappen, he's just taken a 10th out of him on this lap around. The gap now getting down towards 6 seconds though, so he's upping his pace once again. Maybe it was a bit of traffic on the last lap that Norris had to deal with. He's in amongst the back markers. Bottas 15th, Magnussen 16th, still driving around. 20 drivers still in this race. No retirements on lap 51. Plenty of penalties as Yuki Tsunoda is now handed a 5-second penalty further back. That's right at the back of the field, and that is for speeding in the pit lane.
Slam dunk, that one. This is the sound of Perez in the second Red Bull, now on the soft tyre, overtakes Esteban Ocon in the Alpine down the main straight into turn one with the help of DRS. Easy move for Perez in the end. Ocon didn't fight it. Ocon on the hard tyre. Perez 9th, Ocon 10th. Outside of the top 10, it's Hülkenberg in 11th ahead of Joe in the Sauber. The two Aston Martins, Alonso and Stroll, in 13th and 14th. Bottas is 15th ahead of Magnussen. Ricciardo down in 17th. Albon, who started from the pit lane, in 18th ahead of his teammate Sargent and Yuki Tsunoda, now compounded to a miserable result with that 5-second penalty, 20th and last.
Fastest lap, Lando Norris as the Mercedes are side by side. This is the chance for Hamilton.
Hamilton swoops round the outside. They're oh so close to contact. Russell puts up a bit of a fight, but in the end, Hamilton makes the move stick. Hamilton through and up into third. Russell down to fourth, offset by the tyres. Hamilton had DRS, but it did get quite close into turn one.
Yeah, back on towards a podium now, and that could well be that for Lewis Hamilton. Nice move around the outside. Russell struggling on those hards, and I think he'll be probably ruining that strategy choice that his team made at the on the fly there. This is the sound on board Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes, staring down the barrel of third place, which was his teammate. Russell jigged to the inside. Hamilton loads more grip and sent it in deep, gave Russell plenty of space on the inside. A nice move from Hamilton, who looks like he's going to be back on the podium in this one, if all is well and good for the last 14 laps. Norris with the fastest lap on the last time, 0.8 quicker than Verstappen. The gap, 5.5 seconds.
5.5 seconds indeed between Verstappen and Norris. Hamilton now into third already, has left his teammate behind by over a second. Hamilton, a 6-time race winner here, looking for his first podium of the season.
Push to the end now, Max. As I say, Lando not tyre saving.
Verstappen then told, we've got to push because Norris is also pushing. I'm impressed that the soft tyre they went on with it, and they're going to go right to the end on to 66 laps, currently lap 53, and pushing hard on the soft tyre, the red Wolf tyre, the softest of the rubber that Pirelli have provided us this weekend.
There's no massive threat from behind for Norris now. He's got 7 seconds back to Hamilton, who's on a more aged soft tyre than Norris in the McLaren. So it's all about trying to win this race. He doesn't have a huge tyre advantage over Verstappen either. Verstappen was on a new soft a couple of laps earlier than Norris put on a used soft, so that balances out. And still, the McLaren is quicker, but Gianpiero Lamesi on the Red Bull pit wall thinking that Norris is just pushing that little bit harder. They come through, Verstappen down into the 1 minute 18.1, and Norris is only 0.2 quicker.
Alonso in the Aston Martin in front of his home crowd gets 12th place, unfortunately for him, from Zhou Guanyu into turn 1. Alonso having a rough weekend at a track where he took his last Grand Prix victory way back in 2013. What a day that was for him then. Today, a bit of a struggle for both Aston Martins.
And strat 10 when you can. Strat 10.
Strat what?
10.
10 or 2? I don't understand.
1-0. 1-0.
So that was definitely strat 10 for Verstappen there.
Sounds clearer. It sounds clearer to us, hearing it nicely through the broadcast, than it does when you're trying to rag a Red Bull around this circuit at high speed, with the tension, the pressure and the engine noise reverberating around the cockpit as well.
Still around 5.5 seconds the gap though between Verstappen and Norris, incrementally coming down. Last lap around was a 1:18.1 for Verstappen, a 1:17.9 for Norris, so there is not much between it. Norris a little bit quicker that last time around, but then Verstappen has just pumped in a 1:17.7 to cross the line to start lap 55 of 66. So we'll see what Norris has when he comes across the line, but at the moment it's kind of stabilising at around 5.5 seconds for the time being, the gap between our top two.
17.9, so actually Norris losing 0.2 on this lap, and that'll be tough reading for McLaren on the pit wall, seeing Verstappen setting a personal best lap of the race, 11 to go. And Norris needs a good chunk now, about half a second a lap.
Well, Charles Leclerc makes one of the easier moves down through turn 1 on his teammate Carlos Sainz, who almost literally drives off the road coming into turn 1, the braking zone. The Ferrari of Sainz jinking to the left to allow Leclerc through, and an easy run. Leclerc and Sainz on different strategies now. Ferrari splitting them, Leclerc on the soft tyre and Sainz on the slower hard tyre. 5th and 6th, it doesn't look a great reading for Ferrari, who right now brought an upgrade this weekend, but are where they started this race, behind Mercedes, line astern, in 5th and 6th. Leclerc, though, 6.2 seconds he's got to overcome to try and catch up to the back of George Russell in the next 10 or so laps. Indeed, last time around, Russell did a 1:18.2, Sainz, Leclerc a 1:17.8. So Leclerc could close up to the back of Russell before the end of the race if he can continue that trajectory.
The challenge is petering out. Another lap and another gain for Verstappen. Still 5.5 seconds, so I think Verstappen's lost a little bit at the start of this lap. In fact, he's lost a lot at the start of this lap, 0.6 in one sector, but he was 0.3 quicker on the last lap. It looks like he's just been holding back for the final attack now.
Now, I know it's not what you want to hear, but there's a nice battle for last going on at the moment between Logan Sargent and Yuki Tsunoda. Tsunoda all over the back of the American in the Williams. 0.3 of a second splitting them. Sargent on the hard tyre, Tsunoda on the soft tyre, and Tsunoda hoping to not finish plumb last in this race, and indeed he does get through on Sargent.
I think this has been a decent Spanish Grand Prix.
Better than recent ones, definitely.
You know what? I even think recent Spanish Grand Prix have been quite reasonable as well. Last year, Verstappen did win by half a minute,
Yeah,
so maybe we'll take that one out of the equation.
To rack my brain.
Right, 2021, Verstappen and Hamilton did battle in a sort of a strategy race like we've seen today with Verstappen and Norris. And I think the race today would have been closer at the end had Norris not had to come past Sainz, Russell and Hamilton in that middle stint, taking some life out of the tyres. By the way, he was just 7/10 quicker than Verstappen on that last lap, so it's not absolutely over. The gap now 5 seconds, but it seems a tall order to come through. 21 was good. 22, George Russell led in the Mercedes that was porpoising, was all over the place at the start of that year, and there's some nice fights.
Yeah.
I think Barcelona's becoming just as it may be coming off the calendar, is giving us some good races. I love that they've opened up the final couple of corners, got rid of that horrible, tight, nothingy chicane. It gives us better racing into the first corner.
Did you enjoy driving the track when you were here, did you?
I liked it, but we did so much driving here. Pre-season testing was always in Barcelona.
Get bored.
It's one of those ones where if you didn't come here every year, which we don't now,
If you can, we need to try and pick up the pace.
As Leclerc being told to pick up the pace to try and catch up to the back of George Russell's 4th place at the moment, lap 57 of 66. Verstappen and the gap between himself and Norris now around about 5 seconds. It's coming down, but not quick enough.
4.9, it's underneath 5, but as you said, it's not quick enough for Norris. This is not quite Imola take 2 yet, unless Verstappen hits trouble in the last 8 laps. I think when we don't come here for pre-season testing, it makes it nicer to come and drive the circuit, and it's nice. There's some elevation change. Drivers like to drive fast corners as well. There are plenty now. They've taken out the chicane, particularly. It's a flowing circuit. Madrid coming on the calendar for 2026. That'll be the Spanish Grand Prix, and remains to be seen if Barcelona will stay alongside it, but it is looking doubtful.
And that coming onto the calendar will be a street circuit. It kind of shows the form that Formula One is going in, towards more street circuits led on the calendar. Barcelona set to fall off the calendar unless they can somehow save it, but it's not looking that way at the moment. Further back in the pack, a couple of moves going on, but no points up for grabs. Just Pride, Daniel Ricciardo just getting through on Kevin Magnussen for 16th place, and at the moment Ricciardo on course to finish ahead of his teammate Yuki Tsunoda for only the 3rd time this season. Both RB drivers have struggled from the get-go, really. I'd say the RB drivers, the Williams drivers and the Aston Martin drivers really have suffered quite a lot since the beginning of this weekend. They're all towards the back of the pack, and that's allowed the likes of the 2 Alpines to really come to life this weekend. Gasly still doing a great job despite that slow first stop, which for all intents and purposes you'd think would rule him out of the points. He's still holding in 8th spot. He's got Perez though 4.5 seconds behind him, but we're into the closing stages now. Gasly on the hard tyre, Perez on the soft tyre, Ocon holding on to the final points paying position. So Alpine hoping to hold on to double points, and if they do that, it'll be back-to-back double points finishes for the French team, currently undergoing a lot of changes behind the scenes.
Yeah, Perez 9th, so he's found a couple of places in the Grand Prix. He's not making huge inroads at the moment on Gasly. On the last lap, 2/10 quicker than the Alpine. On this lap, comes through again on his soft tyres, having come around a bit of traffic, and he's actually slower than Gasly ahead. So it's Verstappen. Verstappen is making the difference at the moment. There's no two ways about it. He is driving so well, executing the race perfectly in what I don't think it's the fastest car today, the Red Bull. I think the McLaren has been the faster car. Perez is not exactly showcasing how quick the Red Bull can be in other hands either, down in 9th in a full minute down on his teammate. But Verstappen had a decent start, managed to get ahead of Norris even if Russell swept past him, and then he was just, that move on Russell set up this whole race that looks like it's been plain sailing, even if he's been pushing the whole way.
That is the sound of Alex Albon having a bit of a moment, coming into the right-hander of turn 4, losing the rear under braking, and has to save it, but in doing so rumbles over the gravel. Not too much harm done, but compounding a miserable day at the office for the Thai driver.
Miserable weekend for Williams. Didn't score anything in Canada, retired with both cars in Canada, and Albon was so unlucky.
He was on course for points as well.
He was having a good weekend. He was having a very good weekend, and Williams were looking like finding a bit of form. A couple of points in Monaco for them. and then was hit by a spinning Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. But this time, no pace at all, and they'll be not enjoying seeing two Alpines in the top 10 either. An Alpine set to move up in the constructors.
What the hell was that?
At the moment, all I take from outside.
No, it's not okay. Don't just say that within 5 seconds.
That's Alex Albon on the radio referring to his little moment, chatting with his engineer. Doesn't like the response he's given, which kind of fair play. Not all was okay there, clearly, if Albon doesn't believe that was a mistake he made.
Well,
there'll be an investigation post-race.
Yeah, he obviously thinks that something happened to the car at that point. It's turn 4 is quite exposed to the wind. It was most likely the classic gust of wind excuse. That sounds so naff, but it can just throw the car slightly into an oversteer, and then he corrected it into the gravel.
He has seen the driver complaining about wind the most this weekend, actually. So
there you go.
The Williams clearly quite affected by that.
They have been for a while as well, and it is just you come through turn 3, long right-hander, you're slightly exposed then into turn 4, and you just catch it, and then just sends Albon. It just does something marginally different, maybe brakes a metre or two later, carries a tiny bit more speed in, and the back just steps out, and before you know it, you're rally crossing through the gravel. It's from 18th. He just wants to try and understand what's going on really with Williams. The car, the team obviously saying no, the car's fine, still pointing the right way, keep driving.
Yeah, he's got Tsunoda coming up to him, 1.3 seconds. The battle for 18th is on in the closing stages. The battle up front, the lead of this race, Verstappen with 5 laps to go. 4.3 seconds is the gap between himself and Lando Norris. It's been coming down slowly, but not quick enough for the likes of Lando Norris and the McLaren team, who would want it to be coming down a lot quicker.
So Norris lost this race at the start. That's what's happened here. It's been a kind of enjoyable battle, strategic battle between them. They're going to come back together. It's about 4 seconds the gap, 4 laps to go. Verstappen, barring any major mishaps, is going to keep Norris at bay. It'll be so frustrating for Lando because he will now see the race leader that he's been in a sort of proxy war with for such a long time in this race. But that start, losing position to Verstappen, let's not forget Norris was on pole. Verstappen came on the inside, Russell came on the outside. He lost 2 positions, and whilst Verstappen was able to come past Russell with a committed move straight away, Norris couldn't. He got stuck behind Russell in that first stint, lost about 6 seconds to Verstappen, and that's where we're ending up. That opening stint, the opening lap, and then the next one were so critical in deciding this race.
A move further back, Daniel Ricciardo just getting through on Valtteri Bottas's Sauber for 15th spots. Lots of sport coming up after us here on BBC 5 Live. Big match tonight in the Euros, ahead of an 8 o'clock kickoff for Scotland and Hungary. Scotland can still qualify if they beat Hungary this evening, so that kicks off from 8 o'clock right here on 5 Live. And also Tuesday, live coverage of England's final group game against Slovenia in Cologne. That's an 8 o'clock kickoff, and you can hear that on 5 Live and on BBC Sound. So England, Slovenia, Tuesday, as the Euros coverage continues here on 5 Live, kickoff from 8 o'clock on that Tuesday. It's live coverage of the Spanish Grand Prix right now for you, though, into the closing stages with myself, Harry Benjamin, former Formula 1 driver Jolyon Palmer, and the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson. The gap for the lead is now under 4 seconds between Max Verstappen and Lando Norris. He's put in a real shift here, but as you said a few moments ago, it kind of all came undone at the start. Hamilton looks nailed on for this podium. Russell, who led this Grand Prix in the early stages after a magnificent move around the outside into turn 1 on lap 1, currently stabilising in 4th, but he's got Charles Leclerc chasing him down on much quicker tyres in these closing stages with just 3 laps to go.
I still think it's very encouraging for the rest of the season. Verstappen is a machine, and he's looking like he's going to win this one with the perfectly executed race from the cockpit. He's done everything right, and he'll build his championship lead, and it looks unassailable. Red Bull and the constructors don't look unassailable, simply because Perez is barely scoring anything at the moment. But Verstappen is doing so much of the legwork for them. But every race, looks like it could be interesting from here. This is such a different track to the last two that we've been on, where Red Bull didn't have it their own way. They didn't win in Monaco. They just won in Canada, but it again took all of Verstappen's nous to get there. This time, the gap is only 3.2 seconds. It's not even absolutely done with 2.5 laps to go. But it's the way that McLaren is still showing that they can take the fight to Red Bull. And again, I think they're the fastest car here. We're going to Austria next week. It's a track that Red Bull have good form, but also McLaren. Norris was very quick there, and he led at Silverstone, where we're heading the next week on home soil. I think there's a lot that we can take from this as lovers of the sport, that we're going to see some good fights moving forward.
I think this is the point, Jolene, isn't it? Excuse me. Got a frog in my throat again. Sorry, Paddy, the producer. He had a go at me about that earlier.
Are you getting emotional?
I guess I must be. So I think there's an argument that the Red Bull's not been the fastest car since the Chinese Grand Prix. Norris won in Miami. But counting from Miami to now, even though the Red Bull might not have been the fastest car at any of the races, Verstappen's won 3 of 5. And that just underlines the quality of work he's doing in the cockpit. Yes, the team are brilliant operationally, but he's providing them the opportunity to make the most of that brilliance in operations. He's the one in the cockpit making the difference, in my opinion, at the moment. And I think if the likes of Norris want to challenge him on a regular basis, they've got to try and match that level of excellence in the cockpit.
And this explains why Red Bull keeps Sergio Perez in the other car, because it keeps Verstappen happy. It's the only reason that Perez is in that car coming around now. He's actually catching the back of Gasly, might yet have a scrap for 8th in this one, but it keeps Verstappen happy. And when the star driver is driving this well, he's your biggest asset right now. Adrian Newey's leaving the team. There is a lot of disruption going on. If you can keep Verstappen happy, motivated, feeling like he's still loved within the team, then he can deliver these sort of performances. And it is Verstappen that's making the difference.
Still closing, Lando Norris onto the back of Max Verstappen. Verstappen may well be the driver that can make a difference no matter where he is, but Norris is trying to make all the difference he can right now. The gap, 2.5 seconds, but this coming towards the final lap of this race. And Charles Leclerc also trying to make the difference, really closing up to the back of George Russell. He's now within a second, so he'll get the aid of the DRS, the drag reduction system. The flap on the rear wing opens up when you're within a second of the car in front in the designated zone. Down the main straight is one of the 2 zones across this track into the braking zone. He's not close enough though on that occasion, Leclerc, but does close up to the back. But he's running out of opportunities to try and pick off Russell's 4th place here. There is a bit of a tyre disparity as well as they come into the braking zone for the slightly off-cambered right-hander of turn 4, which then leads you to the downhill braking zone, the left-hander of turn 5 as the track starts to dip in elevation before getting into the middle sector. Slightly more twisty and technical. Little bit of a lock-up coming through there though for Charles Leclerc, front left lock-up, and he's lost time there as he makes his way through the right-hander of turn 9. Leclerc won't be able to do it, but one final corner to go then for Max Verstappen, who reigns supreme in Spain. Verstappen wins the Spanish Grand Prix. Lando Norris pushing all the way to the end, but only a couple of seconds in it. Lando Norris will have to settle for second, and Lewis Hamilton will be on course round the final corner to take his first podium of the season. Hamilton and Mercedes back on the rostrum. Russell holds on to 4th. Charles Leclerc pushing him all the way in the Ferrari has to settle for 5th. Sainz 6th, Oscar Piastri 7th, and elation for the 2 Alpine drivers. Gasly 8th, Ocon 10th, with Perez in the middle in 9th. Those are your top 10. That is your point scoring positions for the Spanish Grand Prix. But after 66 laps, on the face of it, Jolien, it may look like another Max Verstappen win, and it was. Let's hear from him.
Yeah, congratulations, mate. It was hard work, but yeah, you made that race for yourself. I think down to turn 1 and the overtake on Russell 2 laps later. Nice job.
Yes, nice. Yeah, we're definitely not the quickest out there today, but we did everything well, strategy as well. Yes.
Well done, Max. That was a brilliantly executed race. You made it count at the beginning with George making that move, and yeah, really well executed race. Well done.
Well, he summed it up nicely there. He doesn't think he was the quickest, but he certainly had the skill and the pace.
Everything we've just said, basically. Red Bull agree. Perfectly executed. And another win for Verstappen. Here's Norris.
P2, as you know, fastest lap.
Yeah, it doesn't matter really, does it? Man, I should have won at the start. The car was amazing. Well done. Deserved more.
So Norris then not happy with that. It was all lost at the start though for Lando Norris, but it wasn't a particularly bad start.
Well, the start itself was not as good as Verstappen. It gave Verstappen a chance to have a nose in on the inside, but he was so cautious at the braking for the first corner. There have been incidents at the first corner in previous years, and can understand with a car on the inside, a car on the outside, why he might be. But he got done on the brakes by Russell and by Verstappen, and it cost him the race.
It's in there, Lewis. That's P3, bud. That was a real great drive, mate.
Thanks, Bono. Great job, guys. Mega. What a great surprise to come here and get these points. We're making improvements. Let's keep pushing. We're nearly there.
Lewis, that was quite some moves. Well done. Great to watch.
Thanks, Toto.
We haven't heard a get in there from Bono in a while, have we? Pete Bonington, Lewis Hamilton's race engineer, and bagging crucial points for Mercedes with a 3rd and 4th place finish. It's where they started, but it was one of the better Spanish Grand Prix that we've had over the last few years. A hard-fought win, strategy at play, but in the end, Max Verstappen and Red Bull showcased time and time again why they are the winners, why they are steeped in this huge, dominant form. And he gets out, displays how much it means to him on the top of his Red Bull car, pumps the air, just puts his wheel back on into the cockpit and runs straight over to his team, the mechanics and the engineers, raising him up, hugging him, pats on the back. Dr. Helmut Marko, the Red Bull's sporting advisor, is there as well. Smiles all around because they know it wasn't just a super dominant Max Verstappen win. They had to work hard for it, but they had the pace. They made the difference. They started this weekend actually not the fastest car. They didn't end it as the fastest car, but Max Verstappen is the man that is the fastest driver perhaps in this field of 20 cars and can make the difference time and time again.
So before the race, it sort of said, well, Norris starts on pole in Barcelona, a circuit that's not traditionally the easiest to make gains on, make passes without a big tyre offset. You know, in theory, he should be the favourite, but you always just think it must be Verstappen as the favourite. It was the same in Canada where he started second. The same here. When Verstappen's in the top fight, you just always think right now, he is the favourite for the race. Norris gave him a tough fight, and Lando I still think drove well. He was a long way ahead of his own teammate this weekend. He can kick himself for the start and being a little bit too cautious. He'll get plenty more opportunities to win. But Verstappen is ruthless when he has to be. He's patient when he has to be. And that level of maturity is just so tough to beat for everyone else.
4-time winner around this track now is Max Verstappen. That's 3 Spanish Grand Prix wins on the trot for the Dutchman, who extends his lead in the championship. But it's Lando Norris who now pops up into second in the Drivers' Championship. Pips Charles Leclerc, who falls down to third, just a couple of points between those two now. Sergio Perez just coming along and giving a pat on the back to his teammates Verstappen. Perez only getting 2 points in 9th.
He got 8th on the last lap, Sergio Perez.
Oh, you're right. Yeah,
came past
right.
Gasly.
Well done. Here's David Coulthard asking the questions to our top 3. And we'll kick off the questioning with our race winner, Max Verstappen, who is speaking to DC now.
Max Verstappen, your 61st victory, your reign in Spain continues with your 3rd straight victory. You had to work for that one.
Yeah, it was. I think what made the race was the beginning. Yeah, I took the lead at lap 2, and that's where I had my buffer then in that first stint where I could eke out the gap a little bit, because I think after that we had to drive quite a defensive race. You know, Lando and McLaren, they were very, very quick today, especially on deck. You know, it seems always the last few laps of the stint they were very, very fast. But I think we did everything well. We drove quite, I think, an aggressive strategy, but luckily it paid out till the end. It was quite close till the end, but very happy to win here.
Now, we could see when you celebrated with the team just how much this victory meant to you. This is where you got your first victory in 2016, so this track has been kind. Now, the start of the Grand Prix, you got up alongside your friend, and then you had George Russell come around the outside. Did you know he was there, or did that catch you by surprise?
Yeah, I mean, I had to do a bit of rallying on the straight. I had to go into the grass a bit, which lost me a bit of momentum. So then, of course, we brake quite late into turn one. But then, of course, I was quite determined to try and get the lead. Once I was in the lead, I could look after my tires a bit better, and that definitely made my race today.
That was crucial, getting that pass on George so early in the race.
Looking at it right now, absolutely.
Okay, well, we heard you saying that there was some inconsistency in the middle part of your Grand Prix. We saw you have a little high side in turn 7. So how close were you to the limit throughout this race?
Yeah, it's just managing the tires. You know, they get very hot around here with all the high-speed corners, so you're sliding around naturally quite a lot. So it's just a management race throughout.
Okay, well, congratulations on your victory.
Thank you.
Go and enjoy the podium. And as our race winner steps away, Lando, what's 2 seconds between friends? Well, it's the difference between victory and second. We heard on the team radio there, this is a race that you feel you could have won.
Not good, should have done. I got a bad start, simple as that. So the car was incredible today. I think we were for sure the quickest. I just lost it in the beginning. So yeah, disappointed, but a lot of positives, one negative, and that kind of ruined everything. I know that. I can just work on it for next time, but apart from that, a good amount of points, and a big thanks to the team because the car was amazing.
Well, you have had a brilliant weekend. Your pole position was one of the laps of the year so far, so there's a lot of positives to take away, but it sounds to me that, are you taking it on you, the start, or was it just one of those things? Did you do something off the line that you're not satisfied with?
I'm not sure. I need to look back and review. I don't know what I did wrong or if I was just slightly out. It was only a little bit to Max that I lost. It wasn't like he was completely alongside. It was more that George was on the outside and kind of had me over. So, fair play. Well done to Red Bull and Max. Another job done for them. But a shame that we lost it at the same time. So a bit frustrating, but we'll work on it for next time.
Well, it's great that you're frustrated with the second, and you don't have long now to reflect on that before we go into what is the second of a triple header.
Yes, I mean, Austria and Silverstone, 2 of my favorite tracks in terms of performances and where we performed well at. So I'm excited. You know, we're on a good roll. We're doing well. I need to just tidy up a few little bits, and we'll be on top.
Okay, Lando, great weekend for you. Enjoy the podium.
Cheers.
And finally, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podium, Lewis Hamilton. Lewis, the crowd appreciates seeing you here. Amazingly, it's been Mexico was the last time last year that you had a podium. But this weekend, you were on it, and your passing at turn 1 was pretty special today.
Yeah, it's been a good day, been a good weekend, a solid weekend. I have to say a big thank you to the team, because they've been training so hard in this pit stops. The strategy in the pit stops were really on point. Unfortunately, a bit like Lando, I got a really bad start and obviously lost ground to the Ferraris. So it was a bit of a battle to get back to where I am now. I think ultimately with a better start, we would have, I don't know if we could have really held on to the guys ahead, but I don't think we'd have been as far behind as we are today.
Strategy, of course, was a big part of today. We saw 2 different strategies from your team. George went on the hard. That didn't appear to be the tyre today. Were you driving that strategy decision to go with the soft tyre at the last stop, or was it just open play?
That was the plan from the beginning. It was never an option to run the hard tyre for me today. So I drove the race to a soft, medium and hard. Soft, medium, soft.
Okay, and then just take us to that first corner. I mentioned about the overtakes. It got pretty up close and personal with Carlos Sainz.
Yeah, I think all the overtakes were super close. That's how it should be, right? Nice and close. I think we bumped wheels, but it was fair. I left him space, and it was right on the limit, but piece of paper between us.
Excellent. Well, Lewis, great to see you on the podium. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, you don't have to wait long. 5 days' time, we'll be back on track in Austria for the second of the triple header.
We will indeed. David Coulthard there doing the questions. Austria next up, and then we go straight to Silverstone for the British Grand Prix. They're your top three of the Spanish Grand Prix. Max Verstappen ahead of Lando Norris. Lewis Hamilton rounds out the podium. George Russell finished fourth ahead of Charles Leclerc and fifth. Carlos Sainz was sixth. Let's just have a listen though, as they're in the cool-down room.
Because the side look, I did a bit of rallying. There's plenty of space. Look at that. I think the social George has a slipstream all the way until like the last. Yeah, that's.
Nearly wait for you.
Verstappen and Norris watching the start of the race with Hamilton just joining. Commenting on the slipstream that Russell got. Huge slipstream for Verstappen and Norris to sweep round the outside.
We slow each other down. Like if I break down later, that would have gone down the outside. I'm rocking over the barrier. Probably George as well. George is upside down in the ground.
That should have been. That's where I should have been.
So, commenting there on the start of the race, it really was a great start for George Russell.
Otherwise, the tyres are so great.
Yeah, like first two laps, the tyres are unbelievable,
and then you get stuck.
Because even on the medium stint, I struggled to get past them for like 5 laps. But as soon as I get past,
yeah, that was great.
Go on.
I was watching. I was like, thank you. But it is very tough.
Always good insight from the cool-down room.
That shite start, I don't think it'd be as big a gap to you guys. I think we would have been maybe.
When did you pit? Huh? When did you pit the first time round? After George? The lap after George?
And always good insight from the cool-down room there. Sorry for any language you heard in that bit with Hamilton, Verstappen and Norris. Let's just run you through the order. Verstappen, Norris, Hamilton, the podium. Russell, Leclerc, the top 5. Sainz, Piastri, Perez, Gasly, Ocon, your point scorers. That's the top 10. Hulkenberg 11th ahead of Alonso. Joe, Stroll, Ricciardo 15th. Bottas, Magnussen, Albon, Tsunoda and Sargent 20th and last. All 20 drivers finishing the race, Andrew.
In one sentence there, Max Verstappen summed up the whole race. One lap when I had the chance and then the tyres would overheat. And that's the point. He did it on that one lap when he could, passing Russell for the lead on beginning of lap 3. That was the race won there and then.
It was all in the early stages of this race, wasn't it? That start and then managing your tyre pace. I mean, Jolien, though, it was one of the better Spanish Grand Prix of recent history. That's what you said on the coverage, and you standing by that?
No, I liked it. I quite like a bit of strategy. Norris was pushing so hard, he kept Verstappen on his toes. You didn't know that Max was going to win it until the last handful of laps. Hamilton back onto the podium, and a nice duel between the two Mercedes. The Ferraris were never too far out of that podium mix. It's not going to go down as one of the classics, but it was a nice race, and I quite like it when you can see a podium that's got 3 different teams on it. 4 different teams can fight for a race win now all the time. This is such a different track to the last couple, and yet Red Bull are still pushed all the way.
Well, look, we're going to be debriefing all of that in the F1 Checkered Flag podcast, which will drop a little later today on BBC Sounds with myself, Jolien Palmer, and Andrew Benson. My thanks to the gentlemen alongside me for helping me call the Spanish Grand Prix. Max Verstappen fending off Lando Norris for the win around the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. That is round 10 done and dusted. Next up, we go to Austria for round 11, but we will leave you here in Barcelona and we'll continue and let's cross over to the cricket. Let's head to St. Lucia and join Henry Moran.
Thank you very much to Harry, Jolien Palmer and Andrew Benson. Yeah, all the reaction available in the Checkered Flag podcast on BBC Sounds. Shortly we'll be live in Barbados, England.